It's September 11th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with emergency care over the holiday period here in the country. The government is making sure emergency medical services are available and accessible to all for the upcoming Chuseok holiday. Pay will also be increased for medical staff who fill the gaps at hospitals struggling to operate due to staffing shortages. Ahead of the U.S. presidential election, which is now just 2 months away, in the coming hour, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump faced off in Philadelphia for their first ever televised debate. Israel's military has released video footage of a Gaza tunnel where it claims Hamas recently killed 6 hostages. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says at least 19 people died in an Israeli airstrike in a designated humanitarian zone in southern Gaza. Starting today, a special emergency care period will be in effect for the next 2 weeks so that there is no medical disruption during the upcoming Chuseok holiday. More local clinics will be open and doctors will see their pay increase temporarily. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
Amid concerns over the long holiday straining the nation's already hit emergency medical system, President Yoon on Tuesday said the next 2 weeks will be the Chuseok holiday emergency medical period. This came during a cabinet meeting to ease the public's concern over access to healthcare during the 5-day holiday.
추석 연휴 기간 국민 여러분께서는 정부의 안내에 따라 주시면 걱정 없이 의료 서비스를 받으실 수 있습니다.
First, he said there have been more local hospitals volunteering to open during this year's holidays than in past years. According to the Health Ministry, the number of hospitals expected to open during this period is twice as many than the last Seollal or Korean Lunar New Year, which was around 3,600. This is expected to ease the burden of emergency rooms across the nation, as President Yoon urged those with mild symptoms to find these hospitals or clinics to get checked up. For those looking for an open hospital, they can dial 129 or visit the portal called eGen or use the Naver or Kakao Map functions. He showed appreciation to these hospitals and those in the emergency rooms who will continue to work.
정부는 의료인들의 헌신에 조금이라도 보답하기 위해 추석 연휴 전후 한시적으로 진찰료, 조제료 등 건강보험 수가를 대폭 인상하기로 했습니다.
In fact, the government will increase the consultation fees for specialists at regional emergency medical centers who are particularly responsible for critically ill emergency patients to 3.5 times the usual rate. In addition, to reinforce the insufficient workforce, the government will prioritize the deployment of available personnel such as military doctors, public health doctors, and medical support nurses. According to the top office, the finance minister reiterated during the meeting that 3.7 billion Korean won or around $2.7 million will be put in to make sure more medical staff could be deployed. As he wrapped up, the president didn't forget to thank those who would not be traveling to their hometowns due to their duties, such as soldiers, firefighters, police officers, and emergency medical workers. He called them the true heroes that uphold the society. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also, ahead of the Chuseok holiday, South Korean authorities have rolled up their sleeves to make sure prices of rice and beef are under control. The plan includes controlling the supply and modernizing domestic beef production. Our Lee Si-hoo has more.
As we face one of the biggest holidays here in South Korea, perhaps a major concern for many is the price of groceries. To ensure that the nation's farmers and consumers can all enjoy the Thanksgiving celebrations free from money worries, the government, the ruling party, and the agriculture and livestock industries are set on stabilizing these prices, especially for 2 South Korean staples, rice and beef.
We are set on stabilizing rice prices by setting aside the surplus from this year's harvest. First, we will set aside 20,000 hectares of rice cultivation areas immediately to prevent overproduction.
Representative Kim explained this is to prevent more of an oversurplus from entering the market. In addition, the government and farmers will work together to enhance rice quality to increase consumer demand, which has decreased year by year recently. Meanwhile, more long-term goals are being set for the domestic beef production industry.
We will strengthen the domestic beef industry by improving the current high-cost, long-term production process so there is no more recurring anxiety about its supply and demand.
The plan is to help farm owners build so-called smart cattle stations, equipped with technologies to help with production efficiency. Furthermore, the government will provide extended financial support and look for more fair distribution channels. Meanwhile, the government is working to increase the supply of other grocery items, including cabbages, apples, and pears, typically enjoyed in Korea's autumn months. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
It's a debate night once again over in the U.S. with Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump going head-to-head in their first TV debate. What to look out for in their first face-off? Let's turn to Chris Keskohe from VOA. Hello there, Chris.
Good to be with you on this very important night here in the U.S.
Thanks for joining us. So the debate is set to begin in the coming hour. Now, how important is this debate for both parties?
Well, tens of millions of Americans are expected to watch this debate, which is scheduled to begin in less than an hour at 9 p.m. Eastern. June's Trump-Biden debate drew more than 51 million viewers, and this debate is expected to meet or exceed those numbers. And this event takes place 8 weeks before Election Day, but only days before early voting starts in a handful of states, as early as next week, even here in Virginia. Now, just weeks after President Biden's disastrous late June debate against former President Trump, he announced he would not seek re-election. And national polling shows the contest between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump to be close, making it all the more crucial for tonight for the candidates to make their best case for the small number of voters who haven't already made up their mind. Analysts say Harris needs to flesh out policy proposals and give more voters a chance to know where she stands on the issues, as about a third of them say they don't know enough about her to make a decision. And Trump, for his part, needs to stay focused on the issues, those analysts say, and address questions about his age, as he's now the older candidate in this election and would be the oldest elected president if he wins the office again.
Right, Chris, so you have to walk us through the rules that will keep this debate a constructive one. I mean, are they the same from the Biden-Trump debate?
Yes, they're pretty much the same from the Biden-Trump debate that happened in late June. The candidates will have 90 minutes to answer questions. The mics will be muted when the other candidate is not talking. They'll have 2 minutes to answer a question, 1 minute for a rebuttal. They will not be able to have notes with them, but they can take down notes during the debate. And they also will not be allowed to speak with any campaign staffers during the commercial breaks. And here's one interesting little tidbit. The candidates for Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have actually never met in person.
Right.
So this will be the first time they meet. And we will have to see if there's a handshake or any sort of acknowledgement of the other once the debate begins, and also when it ends after 90 minutes.
Right, it will be an interesting encounter, and always. Now, let's start with what's believed Harris will pinpoint during the debate. What will be her, main arguments other than the age?
Right, she's been preparing for this debate in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, at a hotel, where she's held several mock debates with a Trump-like substitute, even going as far to have television lighting and would-be moderators asking her pointed questions. Now, at the Democratic National Convention last month, she said, in many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man, but she said the consequences of putting him back in the White House would be serious. She cited the recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling that ruled that Trump and all future U.S. presidents are immune from being prosecuted for wrongdoing. And Harris says that poses a problem if Trump is elected again. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails was her warning back then. Now, on policy, expect Harris to highlight a number of her policy positions, specifically her role as the defender of abortion rights in a way that Joe Biden has not been able to defend abortion rights since he's been president, because he's pretty uncomfortable talking about the topic as a Catholic. And Donald Trump's role in overturning Roe versus Wade. So expect her to hammer him on that account and talk about some of her major economic policy proposals, one of which is providing $25,000 in down payment assistance to certain first-time home buyers, as well as tax breaks to builders of starter homes.
Well, you know, Trump is obviously the more experienced one here, considering he's been on a presidential debate stage 6 times already. What can we expect from Trump then?
Well, Trump has not prepared as much as Harris, according to his aides, but he is engaged in policy briefings with his aides, shunning the mock debates that Harris has been doing over the past week or so. Now, the former president has argued that a Harris presidency is a threat to the safety of the country, so expect him to hammer her on issues like immigration and tie her to the Biden economy, as Americans are still struggling with high inflation, even though it has cooled down to about 3% in recent months. And he told Fox News commentator Sean Hannity last week that he let Biden talk at their June debate, saying that he's going to let Harris talk. There are those who say that Biden is smarter than she is. If that's the case, we have a problem. Trump has often insulted Harris's intellect, saying she has no idea what she's doing. And he said that she is a woman who is dangerous. You can't take a chance. You have no choice. You have to vote for me, even if you don't like me. So we're going to have to see if he continues with those personal attacks, even though many of his top advisors and some top Republicans have advised him to tone down his harsh rhetoric and character or attacks against Vice President Harris.
And on top of that, you know, both candidates, Trump and Harris, both have very different strengths and, weaknesses. What are pundits expecting the outcome of the debate to be?
Well, University of Michigan debate coach Aaron Call said both candidates need to stress their compelling biographies and unique skill sets that would make them especially qualified to lead the country in the next 4 years. He added that they have to make voters feel comfortable with the notion of being president and a regular fixture on their television screens and in their living rooms. Nate French, who teaches communications at Wake Forest University, says Trump has to prove again that he can be president, and he has to prove that he can be assertive without being aggressive and rude if he's trying to get anybody who is thinking about voting for him but reluctant back on his Trump train. Now, Vice President Harris, he says, has to prove that she's presidential, prove that she can attack, but she can also pull back, and prove that she can identify where her policies are Biden's, but still moving in the same Democratic direction.
Well, Chris, before I let you go to watch that debate, how are the two candidates doing in recent polls ahead of the debate?
Well, Trump has seen a little uptick in support in a recent New York Times Siena poll. He is leading 48 to 47 nationally, but in the battleground states, it's a different story. Kamala Harris is leading in 3 crucial states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and the candidates are tied in 4 of the other crucial battleground states, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina. And of course, we always talk about these battleground states because the U.S. presidential election is not a national popular election. It's a series of 50 different elections in the various states because the U.S. does not pick its president by popular vote. So we're always going to be talking about those battleground states in the next few weeks here.
All righty, Chris. So let's see how that debate unfolds. Thanks for the report again.
Good to be with you.
The Israeli military has released footage of the tunnel where hostages killed by Hamas last month were found. Meanwhile, the Gaza Health Ministry announced that an Israeli airstrike on Tuesday killed 19 people. Our Chuseok reports.
On Tuesday local time, the Israel Defense Forces released a video showing the inside of a tunnel in Gaza, where 6 hostages killed by the Palestinian militant group Hamas were found. IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari himself entered the tunnel's entrance next to walls painted with Disney characters like Mickey Mouse and Snow White. He climbed down a ladder to a tunnel 120 meters long. The tunnel is not tall enough for a person to stand straight without bending and is so narrow that only one person can pass through at a time. The IDF reported that it found the bodies of 6 people in the tunnel, including Hush Goldball-Polin, Alex Lemanov, and Gov't on August 31st, and that they had been executed on the 29th.
Where you cannot stand. And they survived. But they were murdered by terrorists, and we will keep on doing everything we can. Everything to bring back home all the hostages.
Meanwhile, the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry said that 19 people died in an Israeli airstrike on Tuesday on the Al-Mawash refugee camp on humanitarian zone. The Israeli military said the attacks were aimed at targeting a number of senior Hamas terrorists. They disputed the Hamas-run Civil Defense Authority's report of an initial death toll of 40 bodies. The Gaza Health Ministry said that 19 bodies were taken to the hospital and 22 were vaporized in the explosion. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres strongly condemned Israel's bombing and urged for an immediate ceasefire and the unconditional release of the hostages. Chuseok, Arirang News.
The United States and its allies plan to sanction both Russia and Iran after reports said Tehran supplied Moscow with ballistic missiles. In response, Ukraine says it could cut ties with Iran if the reports are found to be true. Lee Seung-jae reports.
On Tuesday, during his visit to London, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that Iran had transferred short-range ballistic missiles to Russia to be used in the ongoing war in Ukraine, and added that fresh sanctions would be slapped on Tehran.
The United States will be announcing further sanctions on Iran later today, including additional measures on Iran Air. We expect allies and partners will be announcing their own new measures on Iran as well.
Blinken said that Iran has long supplied Russia with deadly drones, despite warnings from Washington. Washington also imposed fresh sanctions on Iranian airline Iran Air for operating or having operated in the transportation sector of the Russian Federation economy, while the UK said it will be terminating all direct air services between the UK and Iran. The latest U.S. sanctions also target 7 Russian organizations for their role in using Iranian weapons systems, as well as vessels for transporting such military supplies. The EU's top envoy Josep Borrell also vowed a strong response and said a set of measures had been proposed to EU member states to sanction Iran. Meanwhile, Ukraine said Tuesday that it could cut ties with Iran if ballistic missiles supplied by Tehran to Moscow are used to attack Ukraine. It further denounced such delivery of weapons as unacceptable. Kyiv stressed that arms support from Iran would have devastating consequences for its bilateral ties if the missile supplies were confirmed. Ukraine had previously downgraded its bilateral ties with Iran in 2022 after Tehran supplied attack drones to Russia. The Russian military has since used the drones for long-range attacks. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
LG Electronics' transparent OLED TV has been selected as one of the best products in the video home appliance category in the U.S. According to industry sources on Wednesday, the LG Signature OLED TV won the top award in the Best Designer Display category at the CEDIA Expo 2024, a video home appliance exhibition held in Denver, Colorado. The exhibition's official partner, CE Pro, selects the most innovative products at the expo each year. The LG Signature OLED TV is a 77-inch transparent OLED TV that supports a 4K resolution and was first unveiled at CES 2024 in January. The product received high praise for its clear picture quality as well as its ability to provide a customized viewing experience.
Good morning, I'm Kim Seong, and this is The World Now. An American billionaire aiming to attempt the first ever private spacewalk has launched off into space on board a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. 4 private astronauts consisting of billionaire tech entrepreneur Jared Isaacman, a retired military fighter pilot, and 2 SpaceX employees blasted off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center early on Tuesday local time in the spacecraft called Resilience. On their 5-day mission called Polaris Dawn, they will venture out to an orbit altitude of 1,400 kilometers, exceeding the distance reached by NASA's Apollo's program in the 1970s. It is the first of 3 trips Isaacman bought from SpaceX founder Elon Musk and aims to test new spacesuit designs. Now, the riskiest part of the mission, the spacewalk, is scheduled to last 2 hours. The crew will attempt the spacewalk on Thursday and also conduct up to 40 experiments, including satellite laser communication. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Tuesday announced plans to introduce a minimum age requirement for social media use, citing risks posed to the physical and mental health of children. Albanese said the government will run an age verification trial before the rules become law later this year. He added that he wished to see kids off their devices and spending more time on activities such as sports. The law, if enacted, would make Australia one of the first countries in the world to impose age restrictions on social media. An exact age range for the ban was not mentioned, but it's speculated to be set between ages of 14 and 16. Similar efforts, including by the EU, failed over concerns about limiting the rights of minors. According to government data, Australia has one of the world's largest online populations, with some 80% of people on social media. Now, China's Huawei Technologies unveiled its new tri-foldable phone on Tuesday, just after US rival Apple debuted its new iPhone. The Mate XT smartphone, which features dual hinges and 3 foldable screens, was introduced at a starting price tag of $2,800, more than double the cost of Apple's high-end version iPhone 16 Pro Max. Huawei says that it has already received over 4 million pre-orders for the new device. The new Huawei phone is due to go on sale on September 20th, the same date as the new iPhone 16s. Lastly, Australian Olympian breaker Rachel Gunn, better known as B-Girl Raygun, who went viral after her performance at the Paris Olympic Games, has been ranked #1 breaker in the world by the sport's governing body. The latest women's rankings released by the World Dance Sport Federation gave 37-year-old B-Girl Raygun the top spot, even though her performances failed to score any points across Olympic battles, which she lost 18-0 in all 3 rounds against breakers from the US, France and Lithuania. The governing body of breaking and other dance sports, WDSF, explained that Raygun's gold medal at the 2023 WDSF Oceania Championships secured her 1,000 ranking points to put her ahead of the other breakers. Now, Raygun recently apologized to the breaking community for her Olympic performance, which became tremendously viral for the lack of professionalism.
Focus on the positive.
Good morning. A heat wave warning was issued in the capital yesterday for the first time in September. And if you remember, we also had the earliest heat wave warning back in June. So basically, we've been sweltering since June and it's still ongoing. Southern provinces, however, should get some heat relief with a passing rain this afternoon. It could rain down heavily in southern regions when it starts to rain. Meanwhile, east of Gangwon-do and Jeju could see showers from the afternoon, so please keep an umbrella handy all day today. The capital is forecast to see passing rain around midnight. And this afternoon, Seoul and Daejeon will be topping out at 35 degrees Celsius, Daegu, Gyeongju, Busan, Jeju at 32. Then it's going to rain down all day tomorrow, which will bring much needed heat relief, which could linger into Friday. But it's going to be a summer-like Chuseok holiday this year with highs in the 30s in many parts of Korea. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.